the next guy, Gary Moore.
Oh, okay.
Somebody got a haircut.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the Audit and Control Committee meeting for March 16th, 2023 to order. If everybody's had an opportunity to read the minutes from the 2/16 meeting, would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Privilege of the floor. Is anyone here to address the committee this morning? Not seeing anyone, we'll move on to our proposed resolutions. Our first proposed resolution is a resolution temporarily amending Portland Pomfret Dunkirk user charge resolution 262-19.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Matt Olbeck, Director of the North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District and the Portland Pomfret Dunkirk Sewer District. During a recent review of looking into the rate structures for the residential customers, it was discovered that the commercial customers had not been being billed correctly as to the formula that was in resolution 262-19. So they are being undercharged. The correction was made right away, and the board would like to forego the back billing as it spells out in the resolution. We could go back 1 year. They feel it would put a financial burden on the commercial customers that some of the businesses over there are actually shut down right now. And the total amount they could back bill would be $4,120. And that's 5 accounts, 5 commercial accounts over there.
Questions?
Dan, just one. Does somebody review the charges for residential or commercial users each year? Well, apparently not in this case, but from now
Right.
going forward, will somebody be taking a look at those?
I would say that once it's locked in, we're not sure when this formula got changed or how long it's been that they haven't been billed correctly. But yeah, once the resolution's set, it's set right in the computer with the billing company correct now. So it shouldn't change unless we change the rate structure.
Okay, but just so we know what happened that these commercial users were undercharged. Nobody had verified the rate.
It goes back well before my time. So I
A question on that is, did the billing company notice the error, or did someone?
Kristen actually,
Okay.
Kristen Wright found it.
Somebody from the county.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's only. I mean, it is $4,000, but it is what it is. So going forward, we'll have something in place to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Right.
Okay. I'm okay, Dan.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next resolution. Thank you. Acceptance of accelerated transit capital grant.
Good morning. Tim Carr, Director of Public Facilities. This is Chautauqua County has been approved for those grants funds from New York State Department of Transportation. It's an accelerated transit capital grant program. And my understanding, that's a grant that Carts receives yearly. And Michelle has saved up, we're at the point, $475,062 for the hub project in Jamestown.
And Tim, it's all state funds.
Yes, it's all 100% state funded.
Gotcha.
Do you know how many years she's been saving up?
I think she gets about 130 some thousand a year. Is that right, Catherine?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's like 130 or so.
I just was curious, yeah, what the yearly distribution is.
So Tim, is that property is owned by Chautauqua County?
Yes.
Is the remediation done on that facility and that groundwork? There's no tanks in the ground there anymore?
That's the problem we're having right now with the city, is I've met a couple times now, and we're trying to get those tanks out of there. It's their responsibility to have those tanks removed. And I'm dealing with Crystal and Jeff Lehman in the city to have them get started on their process as far as getting those tanks out of there. So they're not going to be in our way when it comes time to start construction on the building.
How big is this building?
It's the old gas station right across from City Hall there.
Mhm.
3 days.
The new one.
It's basically, we're renovating the old building.
Okay.
So the removal of those tanks, that won't be in the way of this particular renovation?
It shouldn't be. My point was to have them in and out of there and get it done before, so we can get started in the spring with our renovation. I don't see any reason why the city can't be taking the tanks out now, why we've got good weather, and that's what we're trying to get done. PJ?
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Sure.
When we first began this project about 3 years ago, one of the agreements by the city of Jamestown would be that those tanks would be removed. There's been some hang up on the end of the city. They're relatively new tanks. My understanding, they were in use for maybe less than 5 years. So it's not like we're looking at, old, possibly, compromised tanks or steel tanks. I believe they're poly tanks. So, but we've been waiting for the city on this really since the inception of this project. It goes back to Tim's predecessor, Brad Beckman.
And Drew can help me too, but the plans right now at Labella are at 50% complete, hoping to be at 90% here shortly. And that's what the city says they want, is they want the complete drawings and everything. Well, we're not changing anything. We're not changing the structure. We're not changing the parking lot. We're not changing anything. We're just renovating our building. And I don't understand why they can't move forward their part of the process and get things done. Doesn't make sense to me, I guess.
And that's why we have you there. Good for you.
That's what I'm struggling with.
That's
Why
right.
can't we get in there and get the tanks out? Let's get it done now so we can move forward when we're ready to go.
Give them the prints and they have no excuse then.
So there's nothing physically changing on our end. The building's the same. Nothing's going to be moved. Nothing's going to be changed.
Any other questions, comments? I had to thank her for saving up
Yeah.
for the years to be able to pay for this project. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next proposed resolution is amend 2023 budget to implement the renovations of Carts Hub Junction project using funding from American Rescue Plan Act.
That increase of $100,000 for the ARPA money, that's for costs on top of what we have available. And those costs are $42,000 for the engineering Labella and their work, roughly $30,000 for the site work as far as the parking lot and repaving the parking lot and everything. And then construction, $400,000, which we also we added in there 20% increase for inflation or unforeseen costs. So there's another basically 80,000. So that gets us to 552,000 roughly.
This is right back to the same junction that we
Yeah.
just talked about.
Yes, same thing. This is the cost for the toll rehab. So when it's all said and done, the county's part would be, because all that other money is state funded money. And the money that paid to purchase the building was state funded money. So really the county's cost is going to be the ARPA money that we have.
Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next proposed resolution, amend funding supplemental agreement number 3 with New York State DOT for performance of federal aid project PIN number 5761.82.
Good morning, Drew Rogers, Deputy Director of Public Facilities Engineering.
Morning.
So DPF had a funding agreement with New York State DOT for the replacement of the Foote Avenue Bridge in the city of Jamestown. It was completed late last year. This resolution is to authorize supplemental agreement number 3, which was actually accepting an additional $128,100 in funding from DOT.
Questions, comments? Always good to get the extra.
Yeah.
All
Very
those in
true.
favor, please say aye.
Doesn't happen that often.
Really.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next proposed resolution is amend 2023 budget to implement the storage assessment project using funding from the American Rescue Plan Act.
Yeah, so for the, I guess it's the second round project request for ARPA funding. We submitted a project request to complete a feasibility study and architectural report relating to the storage needs and facility recommendations at our highway facilities in Faulkner, Sherman, and Sheridan. Many of the storage buildings located on those sites are starting to fall into poor condition. So we wanted to undertake a study to review the actual storage needs at each facility, as well as the building conditions, and make recommendations for either repairs to the existing structures or whether we need to build new. And then if we had to build new, what would be needed based on those specific needs. So basically, with the significant investment involved in either retrofitting these buildings or building new, we wanted to have an idea of what exactly we needed to fit our needs versus just replacing what we had there. So just kind of get a plan going forward for rehabilitating our storage.
Have you gone through the process of selecting a company to do this study yet?
Yes, we're going to use an architectural engineering firm that's currently under contract with the county that has previous experience with these types of studies. So that their estimated cost for this was $29,000.
Local company or what's the company? Or
This was CNS Engineering. They're New York State. They're not in Jamestown.
Mr. Chairman. Drew, when you're talking about storage needs, are you talking about the salt sheds,
Not the salt sheds, the cold storage buildings.
cold storage?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the paint shop, the old highway building.
Okay, all right. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Sign shop.
Good question.
Okay.
roughly, I mean, how many facilities or or square footage is that roughly? I mean, I guess, I mean, is it 10 buildings? Is it 25? I don't know.
In Sherman, there's 2. Sheridan, I believe 2. And Faulkner, there's, well, the old shop, which is kind of a conglomeration of several buildings.
Don't even go there. Huh?
And then there's
The paint shop.
two or three other buildings with the plant 3 across the street.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next proposed resolution is amend 2023 budget to implement the Conowongo Dam sediment removal and valve rehabilitation project using funding from the American Rescue Plan Act.
So again, with the kind of the second round ARPA funding request process, we submitted a project request to provide additional funding to a project that was already partially funded through ARPA. For the Conewango dams, Conewango watershed dams that the county owns in the Cherry Creek, Ellington area. The project would involve sediment removal from the reservoirs and rehabilitation of the reservoir drain valves. These dams were built in the 1970s through the Natural Resource Conservation Services, and the reservoirs have about a 40 to 50 year sediment storage capacity, and so we're reaching those limits. And so this is the project that would is a maintenance project primarily to remove the sediment and then obviously repair these valves. It was previously funded with $500,000 from ARPA, and this request is for $640,000 that would complete the entire project and be able to do all 4 dams.
I think, it's a good use of the funds because it's an expense that needs to be done. And now we have a pretty open stream of funding to do it, where otherwise on a normal budget, it's hard to justify coming up with that extra unless you save for it or something. So I think it's a good project. Any questions, comments?
No, Dan, just that Jay Gould, who was on this committee until this past December, one time remarked he remembered when the dams were built. So it was a few years ago. So this any of this updating or maintenance probably really necessary.
Those sort of projects, you say 50 years, then you end up looking at them at 70 years, and it's too late by then. Something else has gone wrong. So
Right.
it's good to do them. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next proposed resolution is amend 2023 budget to implement the purchase of heavy equipment project using funding from the American Rescue Plan Act.
Another project request through the second round ARPA funding request process. We submitted a request to purchase additional equipment for public facilities. It's actually to replace existing equipment. We have identified 4 pieces of equipment that are really becoming worn out, basically, due to the age. We need to replace our sign truck that's utilized to replace the highway signage, a heavy haul road tractor, a welding truck, and a 12-ton gooseneck trailer. So the anticipated cost for replacement of that equipment is $370,000.
Questions, comments? Everybody seems pretty happy. Good way to cover some costs with some new equipment. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Drew. Thanks.
Thank you. Next proposed resolution is requesting amendment of state legislation regarding imposition of occupancy tax. To my understanding, there's been an amendment to this, and the new version is on your desk as well. So we'll be reviewing the amended version.
Patrick Slagle, County Attorney.
PJ Wendell, County Executive.
Good morning.
So what you have on your desk is amended resolution. Every 3 years, this resolution is passed up to New York State to request that they extend the occupancy tax. If this is not renewed, it defaults back to a 3% occupancy tax. This year, the request being made of New York State is to increase that to an 8% occupancy tax, where 3/8 is given to tourism, and the remaining amount, which would be 5/8, is for the waterways and lakes of Chautauqua County. And so we passed local law pursuant to state law back in 2003 was the first local law. And there's several amendments throughout the years that have added things such as VRBO, those type of rentals to be included in this as well. And so I think the last time was 2020, this resolution was passed to extend it, the occupancy tax to 2023. So now is the time to renew this and ask our state legislators to continue this for the Chautauqua County. And if you look at the law, many other counties throughout New York State have similar resolutions that they do every year. And there's talk about making this permanent, but until that happens, I think it's wise that we've had this resolution passed.
So what you see before you is an amendment that I asked and proposed. One of the pieces we're asking, and I'll be discussing more in depth at the State of the County address, is sustainable funding for our lakes and waterways. Right now, one of the issues we've had, and this has been going on for many years, is lack of funding. There is significant amounts of funding from our philanthropic foundations throughout Chautauqua County, but they were never designed to be major funders for Chautauqua Lake and its rehabilitation or management and maintenance as we go on. But having said that, there was some concern after the administrative services meeting because I spoke about Chautauqua Lake, but the process and the application and eligibility has already been established in what is now our 2% monies. That breakdown is on our county website. The eligibility will not change. Nothing will change with that criteria. All we are doing is looking, if passed, to add more money to that funding. We talked last time when Kitty was here at Administrative Services. Potentially, it could be somewhere in the neighborhood of $600,000 to $700,000, depending on receipts year after year. Again, they're trending, between $1 and $2 million every year. So, having said that, we're looking at roughly, for argument's sake, about $200,000 per percentage point to just do some quick math. So that's what we're looking at. Again, there will not be Chautauqua Lake exclusive, as has been stated in some emails that have gone out recently. This would go to our lake maintenance, or actually our lakes and waterways. And then that money would then be redistributed. Talking to some people from across the state, interestingly enough, Onondaga has a 7% occupancy tax rate. Their hospitality industry asked for a 10% occupancy tax rate, based on formulas as far as the number of the percentage of rooms that are occupied in Onondaga as compared to Erie County. Neighboring counties have 5%. If you look at Tompkins County, they have a 5% tax, but the city of Ithaca also has a 5% occupancy tax. So if you stay in a hotel in the city of Ithaca, you pay a 10% occupancy tax, half of which goes to the county, half of which goes to the city. In Niagara County, they have the same rate as us, but they have a different rate for the city of Niagara Falls and also one for the city of Lockport. So again, as I've said so many times and will continue, New York State is consistently inconsistent. If you look at reports from NISAC, there is a flat county rate anywhere between 2% and 7%. But then cities throughout the state also add an additional occupancy tax rate. So that varies from, from 7% up to 10%. So what we're looking for in this funding is to increase that by 3%. Now, this is up to the legislature. If the legislature, should this go to 8%, want to evenly distribute the money, 4% to travel and tourism, 4% to waterways, that's up to the discretion of the legislature. That does not come from the county executive. I talked to a hotel owner here in New York State. In Erie County, for example, only 35% of their occupancy tax rate goes back to the industry. Chautauqua County takes all of it. My commitment will be and continue to be 100% of this funding goes back to the industry, travel, tourism, and our lakes and waterways. It's not to help balance our budget. It's not to help come up with shortfalls throughout the year, but in essence, giving back to those needed areas of travel and tourism in our lakes and waterways.
Dan, just a comment.
Sure.
PJ, Erie County, so 35% goes to tourism and waterways and stuff. The other 65% just goes back into their general fund.
Correct. As I'm
Okay,
told. Yes.
which isn't the case here in Chautauqua County. 100% goes to tourism and waterways. Okay, look, I don't have a problem with this resolution. I think the highest it is in most of the counties in the state is 7%. So I mean, even if you get 7%, I think that would be a good thing. The only thing is, you might want to just be in touch with the, and I don't know what it is, the Hotel Motel Association folks, and just talk to them and just kind of forewarn them, if you will. I really don't see that this is going to be a big imposition on hotels and motels, because I don't think most people look at the occupancy charge when they come to Chautauqua County to stay here. And the last comment is, I'm okay with the breakdown that we have now, the 3% tourism, the 2% waterways. So even if you wanted to consider sometime in the future 3% just for the lakes, Chautauqua Lake, Bear Lake, Cassadaga Lake, and Finley Lake,
And Lake Erie.
and Lake Erie, all the lakes, I wouldn't be opposed to putting part of this money into another category, if you will. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, though, I'm, for somewhere in my very limited memory, I am assured myself that aren't there wages for individuals that come out of the occupancy tax for some of the lake management groups?
Yes, that's something that's been addressed. We have been in discussions with our assemblyman and senator. Those are some things that they've raised concerns about. And we've also talked, several of us on a trip to Washington, ways we can mitigate that, moving the salaries from where they are right now in waterways to other departments within the county. We don't feel that's a big issue. Correct, that's something that they do have concerns about moving forward. They want to see that funding go directly to back to the industry and not to deal with administrative costs. So we can shift and move that.
Do you have a rough idea what that portion is? I
Off the
mean,
top of my head, I don't have that number. Kitty? Yes.
Exhibit 3, I think it is, in the adopted budget book gives you all of the details of where the occupancy tax dollars are allocated. So it's a full list of all of the programs summarized by 2% and 3%. So that's exhibit 3 in the adopted budget book.
thank you. And
if
I'm
you-
just going off memory, I remember from David and doing that. I don't think it's a huge amount. It's a portion of some of the salaries that's being covered.
So, but at the end, those salaries would be moved somewhere else.
If that's what needs to be done to get this, yes.
Okay.
To planning and development, probably.
Yes.
PJ, right? But I think right now, I think the one person's salary, I think it's yours, David, isn't it? Mostly from waterways,
Our watershed coordinator, yes.
mostly.
Mr. Chairman, I can give you the exact
Please.
amount if you would like.
Please.
2023 budget for the watershed coordinator. Now this includes wages, fringe benefits, and administrative costs like travel. The total is 109,780. And that's 5.3% of the total budget. The total budget for occupancy tax.
That's nice.
And I mean, I would add, it's collection and enforcement of the occupancy tax is a portion of that fund, work done in my office and in the law department. So if you're really talking about the administrative costs, I mean, that is, we do, we have one person who most of her time is spent on occupancy tax, collection and enforcement and receiving. So it's part of the administrative cost of having the occupancy tax.
And even with new software that we've implemented or will be implementing, it's still quite a task for one person to go through and, check and make sure we are remanding what we can from the occupancy tax. A change is made. Obviously, we have agreements with VRBO, Airbnb. So we're tracking the other places like VRBO and other short-term rentals. So it's a challenge, but, we want to make sure we're capturing, as much of the funding as we can.
Okay, so as far as these administrative costs, what are you suggesting, Kitty? It might be, what, 10 or 15% at most?
It's the administrative cost is, as Kitty mentioned, we have the finance, some to the finance department and some in the law department. And this number includes the software that we're planning to purchase. So that budget is $97,000 between the two departments. It's 4.7% of the total occupancy tax budget. And then we do also budget $30,000 that goes towards our tourism coordinator. That comes out of the 3% fund, but that money is to defray the cost of an individual's salary that's involved in tourism promotion.
So percentage-wise, Kathleen, roughly, how much is going to administrative costs?
If you, on exhibit 3, we put the administration component as just the law and the finance component.
Okay.
That's 4.7%. But if you add in the other salaries for the tourism coordinator and for the watershed coordinator, it comes to a total of 11.5% of the total collections.
109,000.
It's 109,000 for the watershed coordinator, 30,000 for the tourism coordinator, and 97,000 for administration.
Okay, so what's that total amount?
That total amount,
Again, though, that percentage is gonna fluctuate based on what our actual receipts are every year.
No, I understand. I just wanted
Yeah.
a rough estimate as to what
And
the,
also, to keep in mind, generally speaking, that amount that's allocated just to my department, it's a flat amount every year. It's not based on, it doesn't go up. It's been about the same for years despite, our cost increases or how much time we spend on collection and enforcement.
And that's why I wanted to see the flat amount versus the percentage, because
yeah, it's
assuming that flat amount isn't changing, but.
yeah, the flat amount does not change much. The only that in 2023, yeah, 2023 it's 236,780, and really the only variable component in there would be the salary and benefits for the watershed coordinator. That is slightly variable. The other 3 components have been fixed for several years.
That is $250,000.
Well, and that's.
Whatever rate the tax is at that doesn't increase our administrative work.
That's a little over 1% of our occupancy tax that we're looking to claim is what we're trying to push out of there. So it's really, it's a significant amount. Any suggestions on how we cover that extra that we'd be having to push out possibly? It's a hit because not only, I understand we're trying to fund some of this lake stuff, but also it had ended up costing the county that extra money because we have to push out some of those administrative costs, right? So it's I agree. It's a good place to try to gain some funds to help support the lake in a way that it doesn't affect every taxpayer in our county. We're doing it through this occupancy tax, and that's good.
Yeah.
But it is going to cost the county some money if we have to move that 230,000 out. So it's if that's what we're willing to do, then that's up for discussion. So those are the cards on the table.
So currently under state law allows keeping of a 10% for administrative costs. Now there's always a question of what's administrative cost and what's a program cost. And so I think there could be some room there to, necessarily is someone's salary or someone's, who's getting a stipend or something. Is that really administrative cost? Or is that part of a program, the developing something? And so I think that's a question to look further into.
Sure.
We'll be looking into it.
Now again, in passage of this, the local law exists already, to allow for this occupancy tax per state law. So this resolution that's passed again every 3 years is just to continue to authorize the higher percentage. Should it not pass, which is obviously, up for the legislature to decide, it automatically reverts as of November 30th to 3%.
Then just one question.
Sure.
Okay, Patrick, so the existing law does allow for up to 10% to be allocated to administrative costs?
Correct, yes.
Okay. I guess where I would be coming from is, if somebody like the watershed coordinator spends most of his time with water programs and stuff and administering those programs, I guess I just soon see some of this money from the occupancy tax be used to pay his salary and some of these other administrative costs, because those costs, the occupancy money that we get is from people from outside the county. Okay, if we have to transfer these administrative costs to different departments like economic planning and economic development or finance or wherever, if we have to allocate some of those administrative costs to those departments, those costs are going to be borne by the taxpayers of Chautauqua County. Okay, so I guess that's my concern. I guess that's where I'm coming from.
And again, things to discuss is, the implementation of the programming. If you have,
Exactly.
money going to a travel and tourism position that's promoting tourism, there lies in, the money. What we're looking at here is not looking to increase salaries or looking, we've seen increased salaries in departments or positions. We're looking to increase the funding for our lakes and waterways. So the goal would be, one, minimizing the impact, as we've said, but also two, increasing that funding for.
Yeah, and I'm all in favor of the resolution. I think it's a good idea. I will support it. We'll have to work out, I guess, the details, but as far as the concept or the policy, I'm in favor of it.
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
I was just wondering, so this resolution will be here. If it gets passed by us, we'll most likely be voting on that. Could we have a little bit more information when we meet, the full legislature meets, so we could speak to that at our caucus to see what the general feeling is?
What more information are you looking for?
Well, basically, one of the very first things I'd like to talk about is, we just talked about all these administrative costs. I'd like to see that in writing. Where you, PJ, and this is an opportunity for you, if you want to come and speak, that would be welcome. I'm just saying, we have heard your spiel, and then another group has, but the bulk of the legislators have not. So when we get there, we can pass that out. And then there'll probably be people there that have our ideas too. So I'm in favor of it, but I would like to just spread more information out.
And-
Where the money's going.
I think it would be okay to assume that we could continue to have the 10% funded out of the occupancy tax, and however that looks moving forward. So if we have $230-some thousand odd dollars coming out, obviously I think the 97,000 could maybe stay in there, because that is purely administrative costs. It's the decision of what that 10% looks like, which probably we'd be at 10% anyway, probably, because we'd be increasing it that much more. So those costs could probably stay in there and still be under that 10%. But if that's the way it all looks out, that's what we want to see. But I agree with the program. I think it's a good way to fund the lake outside of it's a good avenue of revenue. And I think that taking into consideration the local businesses that are promoting people coming to stay in the county. I can only assume that Celeron Hotel would appreciate the use of the funds based on some of their visits with the legislature last year pertaining to the weed problems. And if this could be a direct influence on that, I think it would be that they would say, we're in favor. So I can probably speak for them. I probably cannot for others, but I don't think that that little bit of raise is going to make a difference in some of those. And I hope that maybe in that amount of time, if anyone really has a huge complaint in the businesses and the locals, that somehow or another that they can get to us and have those comments made. We have opportunity for them to do so through letters. They can contact the legislature office. So we welcome anybody that has a issue or concern. Please get a hold of us. Otherwise, I'm generally in support of this. So
Or the executive office.
or the executive's office, so we can have those answers vetted and for our upcoming meeting. So and so we can make the right decision. Any other questions, comments?
I'm also.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job.
The next proposed resolution is requesting continuation of state legislation authorizing 1% additional sales tax.
Patrick Sluggo, County Attorney. Similar type idea is that there's an authorization out there that allows the county for additional 1% sales tax. Every 3 years, request is put in the state to continue that. Absent that, it would go away. And so every 3 years in March, both this and the previous resolutions come forward to the legislature to hopefully gain their approval to continue that additional 1% sales tax.
Any questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. A comment I wanted to make on the last one, I suppose I can make it. I think it is important to note that it was not brought up out of the blue. It's something that was looked at every 3 years. So this is just a regular cycle. So we didn't just pick and choose to look at this and raise it in this particular year.
Every March, every 3 years, and in March it comes up.
I'll try to make a mental note that in 3 years, it won't be a surprise. So every 3 years, we're going to look at that occupancy tax.
Occupancy and
Okay.
the sales tax, they both kind of go hand in hand. Unless again, this been talked, the state may make it permanent. So should that happen, then you won't have to have the resolutions.
And it's time constrained, right? If we have to have that application in and that decision made at a certain amount of time, correct? It's not
That's my understanding. I look back at the past resolutions, 2020 and 17 before that, and it was always in March that it came before the legislature. So I didn't think I would deviate from that.
yes. Thank you.
Yep.
Next proposed resolution is authorized public hearing on a local law adopting the volunteer firefighter and volunteer ambulance worker exemption.
I believe this has been talked at several different committees. Maybe you've had some speakers come forward before in past months. This is to authorize a local law for a volunteer firefighter and volunteer ambulance worker exemption. In review of the law, as authorized by the state, we need to hold a public hearing prior to voting on the local law. So the resolution before you today is to authorize that public hearing for next month. And so in April, if this is approved, there'll be a public hearing at the meeting in April, and there'll be a local law presented at that meeting as well to vote on to authorize this firefighter exemption.
Questions, comments?
Patrick, just on a note, I have heard, and this is just in scuttle, but I have heard that we are providing this exemption for volunteer firemen and ambulance drivers, and then the state of New York also does too, like a one-time $200. And I've heard from my good friends Village of Harmony that you can only pick one of the two exemptions.
No, in reviewing, and we spent some time looking at the law. Maybe I think you back me up on this. I think if you've heard this too, is that you can have both.
Okay.
I think there's been an opinion saying that the specific language in the law that says that this is not exclusive of any other.
Okay. I just wanted to know that. Thank you.
That's the way I understand it as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Mhm.
Is it a state or a federal exemption for $200?
State.
It is state?
State.
Okay.
On your state income tax.
Yes.
Right.
Dan,
Please.
Patrick, I'd like to thank you and the law department for everything you guys have done on this. I've had numerous conversations with you. You guys have done a great job. It's been a lot of research. There was a lot of moving parts to this. There still are. But essentially what it's going to do is the way we have it here in Chautauqua County is going to give a 10% exemption to any qualified volunteer firefighter or ambulance worker. And I think it's the response that we've gotten from the different the fire advisory board, emergency services council, and a lot of the fire departments and stuff has all been positive. I think this would be a great recruitment and retention tool for the fire departments. I support it 100%.
I just want to recognize Noel too. He's been in
Yeah,
communication with the
exactly.
law department, giving us
Yes.
a lot of information and his thoughts and opinions. So very helpful with the
Yes,
crafting. of this.
emergency services has
Mhm.
done a great job as well as you guys.
On the radio this week, it was yesterday, I heard, I don't remember the name of the department. It's not all that far, the other side of Warren somewhere. I forget the hamlet. But their fire department's having a meeting with their local authorities. They need to close the fire department. They don't have any volunteers. They have one or two members and they can't do it. So what do? They have no people. They're trying to come up with a plan. Fortunately enough, I don't think, we may have some departments in our county that are close to that, but also that we're still all open. I'm hoping that this will help flatten that. Hopefully it'll bring some people in. This isn't going to make people pour through the doors, but hopefully it gets an increase of 5 firefighters in our county is wonderful. An increase of 10 would be spectacular.
Or retain some of the ones we have.
Or retain some of the ones we have. And if nothing changes, if we gain none or lose none, the men and women that are serving and doing this probably have deserved this a long time ago anyway.
It's needed.
It's
Mr. Chairman?
needed. So I support it 100%.
If this group of people we sit here, we just ran through all the good things that volunteer fire departments do. Why are we just limiting it to $200?
It's not, we're not, the limit for the $200 is the state. It's not a limit. The state recognizes the same thing we're doing, but they've always given them a $200 credit or whatever.
Credit to their team.
Yeah. So
What did we
ours
figure
is-
ours is going to be?
David, ours is going to be 10% off the assessed valuation of their primary residence.
Okay.
Okay, so in most cases, it'll only come to 80 to $100 or whatever. But if it's in addition to the $200, at least it's something.
Yeah, no, I get it. I just think it's kind of like for people to get out of their bed in the middle of the night and come help you out at the traffic crash, for $300. Does that even pay gas a year? It probably doesn't.
Okay, but that's what we're dealing with. That's what the state passed. And actually, it could be 5% to 10%. Chautauqua County, we're leaning toward the 10% as this resolution is. We'll have the public hearing, but
Right.
going forward, most of us are leaning toward the 10%.
Okay.
Some counties have only given the 5%, but we're more toward the 10.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Next proposed resolution is to authorize acceptance of indigent legal services grant for the period of January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2025.
Good morning, Derek Gregory, Assistant Public Defender for the Public Defender's Office. This resolution seeks approval to approve the contract for distribution number 13 with Indigent Legal Services. This is a continuation from distribution 10. The distributions roll over every 3 years. We've been receiving funding this particular funding stream since 2011. The revenue and associated expenses are already in our budget. This particular distribution is for $269,919 over 3 years. It partially funds the salary of one criminal assistant public defender, salary increases and associated fringe for the assistant public defenders in the family court division. It pays for the lease for the family court division. And in year one, we have some expenses for furniture and technology purchases associated with another grant where we're hiring an assistant public defender for the family court division and a senior caseworker.
Making the money stretch a long ways. That's good. Questions, comments? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Next proposed resolution is to amend the 2023 budget to increase funding for the District Attorney Office expansion project within the Chautauqua County American Rescue Plan Act spending plan.
Good morning, committee. Madeline Contaglia for the District Attorney's Office. The resolution that we have in front of you today is to amend and increase our capital project budget through the ARPA funding to renovate the old print shop directly adjacent to the District Attorney's Office. I know we've come before you and spoke about it. We'd like to expand into that office. Our office just really does not have enough space for the staff that we have. Unfortunately, the expenses have exceeded our initial estimates, and mainly due to the fluctuation of costs in materials. And we do need to replace the entire HVAC unit in that portion of the office, which is estimated at about $50,000. So we are looking to increase the project budget by $30,000 to make it a total of $100,000. We submitted a justification to the ARPA committee to increase this funding, and it was approved.
I've been down in the offices. It's cramped.
Yes, it is.
You'll be looking forward to that space, and I'm sure it'll be well utilized.
Yes,
for sure.
we're hoping to finish out the space kind of directly adjacent to the office so that we can start moving people into it, and then finishing the other two spaces kind of as needed, so we can start moving in. We have somebody starting in next week, and we don't really have a place to put them, so we really do need the space to be finished.
I'm sure when that space was designed many years ago, it was designed for less people than what are in there now.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And we have noticed that they're going to be replacing a few of the walls in the space, which also contributed to the increased cost because there was a little bit of water damage from some previous flooding. But we were able to have Buildings and Grounds do quite a bit of the work needed in that space. They've been very helpful to us. They cannot do anything that has to do with electric or HVAC, so that's why we need to contract it out.
Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next proposed resolution is Emergency Services 2023 Budget Amendment for fiscal year 2020 Technical Rescue and Urban Search and Rescue Grant.
Noel Gutman, Director of Emergency Services. Essentially, this is we received a competitive grant earlier this year to support the technical rescue team in replacing outdated equipment and upgrading to some newer equipment, and also for money for training. As I always like to say when I get the opportunity, this is a no local share grant. So this is a request to bring that money into our budget so we can start making those expenditures.
Sounds good. Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
That didn't take long.
Simple. Next, proposed resolution authorize agreement with New York State Office of Parks, Recreations, and Historic Preservation for marine equipment licenses.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So this resolution is an agreement with the Park Recreation Historic Preservation to supply us or on loan 3 vessels that will cover our lake and assist our navigation patrol. This has been an ongoing program we have with this organization, but the first time we've had to renew the grant there or the agreement. And previously, the sheriff had been signing it, and this is now requesting that the county executive signs the agreement.
Comments, questions?
Jim, the sheriff used to sign this agreement. Now the county executive is signing it?
Correct. It's my understanding. I've done the same thing on a few and been corrected that I have to have the county executive sign them. So
This is a recommendation from the law department?
I believe so.
Okay.
I'm looking at the law department. Yes.
Okay.
I try to expedite things, but the law department might not like
Well,
that.
There's channels that you have to go
Yeah.
through apparently.
Right.
Okay.
Looks pretty straightforward. Good program.
Yeah.
And we're doing it as correctly as we can. All those in favor, please say aye.
Now we are.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And if you just take a second and introduce yourselves for those that are, I know who you are and all of us, but all
Sure.
people listening may not. So that way they know.
Sheriff Jim Quattrone.
Jennifer Swan, Fiscal Supervisor.
Thank you. Want to make sure I do things correctly also.
That's correct.
Next proposed resolution is authorize execution in New York State Office of Homeland Security funding grant for domestic terrorism prevention fiscal year 2022.
Yes, this is a result of a 2-year grant received from New York State to implement the threat assessment management team. Unusually, it's a funded mandate from New York State. This threat assessment management team is required by the state for every county to have a team. It's a team that encompasses school districts, social services, mental hygiene, all the law enforcement in the county. And the goal is to recognize any potential threats or targeted acts of violence prior to them happening and get assistance for the individuals. What we're asking for here is a transfer money we have one staff member that we've put on who's a crime analyst who's working in our office, but working for all the agencies within the county and working closely with the Erie County Crime Analysis Center.
This individual obviously probably works closely with the school districts themselves to a point if they refer that out to you or through the mental hygiene. I'm just curious how those channels work.
Sure. The crime analyst works alongside of us with the school district. So if we have a threat or something that could potentially be a threat, the school or could be a business, whomever will contact us. We have a team that will meet with that agency and discuss the needs. And then between the initial team will determine who else needs to be brought into the conversation to, again, get assistance for the individuals and or the proper treatment, I guess, for the individuals.
It's a situation that we hope that we never have to find ourselves in. But looking at any municipality, district, county, whatever, that has been put into that position, gone, geez, if we had only done this or that, and as long as we're doing those things as best we can.
We're working closely, and our biggest hurdle right now is working with some of the agencies in HIPAA and FERPA regulations. So we're working through them, but we are working well together, and that is the key, is that collaboration amongst the agencies.
Yeah, spot on. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next proposed resolution is amend the 2023 budget for Office of the Sheriff.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this amendment applies to our, what we call our SIG grant. It pertains to interoperability, maintenance, software, and equipment. This grant was awarded later in the year last year. It is a multi-year grant. There is a new round awarded every year. So the funding years tend to overlap. So we have plenty of money for the supplies and the maintenance that we need. But this is what we anticipate for our 2023 expenditure out of this particular grant. And that's what this amendment is for.
Questions, comments?
I noticed that, Jen, you take the higher amount resolutions and somebody else takes the lower amount resolutions. Is that by
Sometimes.
design?
Sometimes, yes.
I have trouble saying those big numbers.
So do I, Jeff.
I noticed the microphone got pushed straight over.
Exactly.
It came to something
Exactly.
technical.
Very quickly,
Outside
too.
of that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next proposed resolution is amend 2023 budget to implement the dispatch furniture replacement project using funding from the American Rescue Plan Act.
Yes, this resolution again is requesting ARPA funding to refurbish our Mayville Dispatch Center as well as our backup center, which is located in Jamestown. The reason we have two centers is during COVID. We've always had the backup center. It really wasn't up and operational until COVID, and we got it going and decided that it was working well, and we wanted to keep people there. We did not want to find out when it was an emergency and we needed it that it wasn't working. So this way we have somebody's using it all the time. But that furniture down there was given to us by Windstream. It's an old desk, not really suitable for the dispatching. And then the dispatch center in Mayville, that furniture is over 15 years old, and a lot of it's electronic, and the parts are no longer supported by the company. So we're requesting this to refurbish both of those dispatch centers.
Yeah, I've been into the dispatching areas and seen the equipment in the facility, and I welcome anybody. I'm sure the sheriff would take you all for a visit if you haven't seen it in a while. I probably will call you after they put this in. When do you plan to put it all in?
Well, once it's approved, then we're going to go to the company and say, "How
come do it?"
Hopefully it'll be approved. Maybe I should say it that way. And then,
Can they get the stuff?
I believe so.
That's the other thing that we've been facing is we say yes on this, right? Or it's approved, and then 2 years later, you finally might get the office equipment.
Yeah, I believe they have the equipment. It's the install time, and the Mayville Center will be reconfigured to make it more efficient. And right now, the way it's set up, there's a lot of cross talk going back and forth, and it's confusing. So everybody will be facing in versus out, so we won't have as much noise going on in there.
So this dollar amount includes those renovations?
That's correct.
Is it the equipment made in USA?
I'm not sure about that, sir.
Just curious.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the equipment was made in USA.
Just curious.
Probably state contract.
It is. It's a GSA.
Yeah.
On GSA.
It's important to know in our times. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next proposed resolution is authorized execution in New York State DCJS body worn camera funding fiscal year 2023.
This grant was offered to us by Department of Criminal Justice Services to allow us to get 8 additional body cameras over that will be good for a 5-year period, the agreement with them. Some of these will be used for our part-time deputies as they can get hired as we can find them. Right now, we don't have any qualified applicants to be able to hire, and then some of them will also be used inside the jail facility. This includes the cameras as well as the data storage for them, and then the evidence retrieval. So when we need copies of them, but it covers all the software as well as the hardware.
Questions, comments?
Dan, just one. Jim, and I meant to mention this last night in public safety, but as far as our part-time deputies, is there anything that we can do, or perhaps the legislature can do, to try to help you get some part-time deputies? Is anything proactive that we can do to help? 'Cause this is a problem.
It is a problem. It's a problem nationwide.
Yeah, understood.
And so we're continuing. We have 14 recruits that are going through their supervised field training right now.
Okay.
However, we fully anticipate the majority of them being hired by various police agencies. And in order for us to hire part-time, they also need to be trained and have the basic course for police officers from the Department of Criminal Justice Services. So we can't just hire somebody off the street. So, our long-term goal is to try to encourage people to go to the academy and complete the academy. And we're working with the school districts, the criminal justice departments at both BOCES as well as the colleges, and then reach out. We're doing different school events, public demonstrations at the schools, and trying to get the students encouraged. We believe, quite honestly, that the recruitment really needs to start younger, as early high school, to get students interested in this career field. And, to counter some of the national media, the negativity, we still believe that this is a great career field, and one that it's a noble career field, that we're trying to stress that to the students and the public.
The folks that go to the academy, those are people that are going to be full-time. That's geared to the full-time deputies.
That academy is geared towards full-time, but because of civil service, quite honestly, sometimes we hope some of the recruits score low so they can't get hired full-time, and then we can bring them on. But
that's another problem.
Yeah, it's but generally, I mean, everybody that's in the academy that's on the list will likely be hired as soon as they complete their field training.
Have we looked at deputies that are retired to maybe come back part-time? Or
most of the deputies that are retired that are working part-time are here, that are interested in the field. They're working like with court security. Most of them have no interest in going back out onto the road.
Gotcha.
They'll work the court security, but we're not getting a lot that are interested in getting out of full-time and then coming back to work patrol.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had provided my kid's school with your name to come in and speak to them. And I was hoping the school had reached out to you, and it was part of a recruitment.
Which school is that?
Chautauqua Christian Academy. Yeah. If not,
I believe they have.
Good.
And I believe I'm speaking there at the end of the month.
Perfect.
Is that the old on Hunt Road?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, and I didn't mean to throw you under the bus on that, but
now I know
did.
who it is.
Now you know.
Well, it's my pleasure to do that.
Kid better behave.
Well, one of the,
Exactly.
I will say, it has been brought up in an idea, and I have not broached this with the state, but many states have what they call a drop program, that they allow officers to retire, but then stay on for 2 to 3 years or up to 5 years. It's actually a benefit to the county because the county doesn't have to pay into their retirement that way, but then they can also continue to work for an extra 3 to 5 years. So it's something that we'll be looking into, and I'm not sure if the state would have any type of appetite for that or not. We're currently proactively working with the state civil service to change some of their requirements and their testing requirements. But again, we're getting pushback from state civil service and the state legislature for doing that.
Question on the cameras in the jail. So, it's a common I don't want to say common. It's a recurring occurrence sometimes where some inmates and jail personnel kind of get into some scuffles. Is this to help kind of monitor that a little better, or
Absolutely. We found with the body cameras, whether it's in the jail or out on the field, that they really assist in not only for training for us, but showing the public what truly happened. We earlier this month, we received a personnel complaint against an incident that happened in the jail. After viewing the body camera as well as the other cameras in the jail, we're able to show that instead of a personnel complaint, they should have been receiving an accommodation because they were able to remove a bag of fentanyl and heroin from the individual, and had he swallowed it, it could have been deadly. So I'm not certain that the complainant will be happy with our investigation, but they received a letter indicating so. So it does protect the county, the officers, and then we can use those for training as well.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jim.
Next proposed resolution is amend 2022 and 2023 budgets for grant revenue mental hygiene. Good morning.
Paul Myers, Fiscal Supervisor for Mental Hygiene.
And Kathleen Dennison, County Budget Director. This resolution amends both the 2022 and the 2023 budgets for mental hygiene. And it's necessary because in our year-end closing procedures, we roll forward any purchase orders that are open at the end of the year. So the department did have a purchase order open for a variety of computer equipment. And when that purchase order transfers into the 2023 budget, it takes the expense budget with it. So it decreases the budget in 2022 expenditures and increases it in 2023. But that year-end process does not adjust any revenues. And in mental hygiene, almost all of their expenditures have accompanying revenue. And so this resolution will adjust the revenue to match that adjustment in expenditures. And I say it's also, it's somewhat optional, but if we don't do it, it makes the local share budget not representative in either year. And given that mental hygiene does have a very low local share, this $100,000 makes a big difference in that local share budget in both years.
Correct. Of the budget, the mental hygiene budget, the local share is very small. And
Yes.
the portions that has grown because of our one problem with sending kids out to agencies, that number's grown small, but so I'm assuming this is our other small piece of local share. So questions, comments?
Self-explanatory.
Sounds good. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Kathleen. Sure.
Carried. Thank you. Next proposed resolution is amend 2022 budget for year-end reconciliation social services.
Good morning, John Anderson, Deputy Commissioner, Social Services. The proposed resolution is in addition to the 22 budget amendment resolution that was approved last month. At that time, the resolution was preliminary because we knew that there'd be additional expenses that would be coming in. And in this case, all of the overages are being covered within the DSS budget. Any questions?
That's all I need to hear. Covered in the department.
Yes.
Fine.
Covered in the department is good, and it is very, I know that when you come up with a budget every year, it's challenging to know exactly what you're going to have on the table. You have nothing fixed in the department, so
Right.
changes on a daily to monthly basis. So Great to move from one guest to another, I guess.
We'll be back.
It won't be the last adjustment, I'm sure. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Kathleen.
Next proposed resolution is the amend 2023 budget to implement the Chautauqua Lake and Watershed Coordinated Work Plan using funding from the 2% occupancy tax program reserve.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Dave McCaw, Chautauqua County Watershed Coordinator. I work within the Department of Planning and Development.
And good morning, I'm Randall Perry, the Executive Director of the Chautauqua Lake and Watershed Management Alliance.
This resolution is about amending our budget for this year, for an additional $125,000. Help close a funding gap specifically for Chautauqua Lake. Each year, the Chautauqua Lake and Watershed Management Alliance compiles a cooperative and collaborative work plan that takes into account all the various municipal and NGO needs for maintaining Chautauqua Lake. We're a little short this year. We're looking at an unusual year coming in with no ice. Many folks tend to think that will cause a lot of weeds that we might not normally get in a more normal year. Also lower lake levels because we don't have the snowpack to support that. So this is to help out and close those funding gaps. Randall can tell you a little bit more about the process and what the needs are.
Sure. Thank you, Dave. So in the summer and fall of the prior year, 2022, the Alliance solicited from its membership, which is over 20 lake, watershed, municipal, and other organizations, solicited funding requests for proposed work for 2023, which could cover any number of lake or watershed related projects. In response to that solicitation, our membership submitted about $2.95 million in requests to the Alliance. The Alliance went through a process of reviewing and prioritizing those proposals, and the Alliance board in the fall of 2022 prioritized 10 projects totaling $800,000, which was then submitted to local charitable foundations for their consideration. And of that $800,000, $683,332, or about 85% of that request has been awarded so far. So those awards have been made to Alliance members for their 2023 projects. Through board discussion, of which the county executive and Marty Proctor, legislator, are members of our 9-member board, which also has a cross section of municipal leaders, elected officials from the municipalities, and then lake and watershed organization leaders, indicated a potential to tap 2% occupancy tax reserve dollars as a means to bridge this gap for 2023. If that $125,000 were secured, then it would basically bring those 10 projects back up to the full level of funding that was identified by the Alliance board, not necessarily the full level of funding requested by the members, but up to that initial target goal that was deemed appropriate to seek funds through the foundations. So it would restore those projects to their level of funding that was in that $800,000 request, and leave about $8,800, which could then be shifted into a contingency fund for lake maintenance. We found over the years that as things change during the course of the season, additional needs tend to come up on the lake. We don't necessarily know what they'll be in March, but as the season progresses, we continue to keep dialogue with members and lake stakeholders to identify sometimes late season needs. Last year, for instance, the Alliance board was able to put some dollars that were left unallocated in the fall towards a late season program that prioritized shoreline cleanup, particularly in the lower South Basin. So that's an example where sometimes those contingency funds can come into play to the benefit of the lake. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that's the broad strokes.
I have a question that you may not be able to answer. I'm curious. I would like a whole number figure. That's sometimes how I think. What is the total amount of money that is spent on the lake from all municipalities, all kind of governments, all, how much money is spent on the lake each year on an average? Chautauqua Lake. Yeah. Just on an average. I mean, are we dumping 200,000 into the lake, which I know is incorrect, or is it 2 million? How much is it? I don't know.
Well, you can look at it from the county's perspective and through the occupancy tax program. Generally, that's what we put into it. But it takes a village to raise a lake. For instance, New York State, through the Environmental Protection Fund, provides nearly $250,000. 150 goes to the Chautauqua Lake Association, 95,000 goes to the Chautauqua Lake Partnership. At any given time, we have a number of grants that are running their lifespan. We've literally brought millions of dollars into the grants.
Sure.
If you want to look at the wastewater treatment and municipal collection systems, $30 million in the last few years.
Yes.
It's a hard number to gauge, but generally between 2 and 3 million each year is kind of where the money's coming from.
Yeah,
it's a big number.
It is, and that's right. It's, we talk about funding those projects. That's the type of figure we're looking to.
Yeah, and it's a
Support.
challenge because the charitable foundations, they are charitable foundations. We like and appreciate their contributions. They may not always be there. Maybe they'll have more pressing social and economic needs throughout the county at some point in time. So it's important that we step up. I sort of looked at this $125,000 amendment as a match to what the foundations are putting in. So it's significant.
Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
just a comment that when the resolution was drafted, it establishes or states that the occupancy reserve for the 2% program was 472,652. Since that resolution was drafted, we have finalized the results for 2022, and the reserve is now $916,000. So there was a significant contribution to the reserve in 2022.
Thank you.
Should we change that amount?
Does it need to be amended?
Should we amend that? I would say that we do because we know that number. Is that the accurate? Is that the 916?
It's $916,017. 916,017.
Would someone be willing to make that amendment?
I'll make a motion to amend that to that figure.
In a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Any we get new discussion on the said opposed amended version. Any other comments, questions? Appreciate the work that goes into the lake and all the work that's being done. So I support this. So
there are a lot of stakeholders, and Chautauqua Lake means an awful lot to the county, and also regionally, Western New York. We do what we can.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks, Dave.
Next proposed resolution is authorized use of Chautauqua County 3% occupancy tax reserve funding for Tri-County Arts Council.
chair. Hello, I'm Paula Bernstein. I'm the Executive Director from the Tri-County Arts Council.
Nice to have you here today.
Thank you.
And as added value, I'm here once again.
We can't get rid
And
of
thank
you.
you for being here today. I got an email from Nate saying that he couldn't be here, so I'm glad you stepped in.
Thank you.
You know, this resolution is about amending the occupancy tax reserve, or using money from the 3% occupancy tax reserve to help fund the Tri-County Arts Council. Unfortunately, they were unsuccessful in some state funding efforts,
That is correct.
and this will go a long ways to helping sustain a very valuable and important organization.
Questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
there fortunately has also been an adjustment to the 3% occupancy tax reserve. So when the resolution was drafted, the reserve was $417,144. And it is now $733,854.
Paula, could you tell us why you think the state grant was denied?
Certainly. So we applied for our NISCA funding as we have done for the last 23 years. Our organization has been around for 40 years, and in that time, we've always received our NISCA funding. With some different things happening at NISCA, they instituted a rubric scoring for their grant processes. To receive funding, you needed a 3.0 score. We received a 2.9. Thank you. So we did not qualify for scoring to receive their funding. Although they had additional funds from the state, they also had 400 times more applicants last year. So we essentially missed out by 1/10 of a point. We are going to resubmit for our general operating funds, but we will still need to score the 3.0 to receive the funding, which I hope we do. They gave us some penalties for some of the lack of diversity throughout our organization and region, and we're working to fix those issues that they noted us on.
Just a question. I really don't know much about the Tri-County Arts Council.
Sure.
What do you do? And
Sure. So like I said, we've been around for 40 years. We are located in our storefront at 110 West State Street in Olean, New York. We do represent the art and cultural atmosphere of the 3 counties, Allegheny, Chautauqua, and Cattaraugus County. And what we do is essentially promote artists through their work, through their journey, through different funding opportunities to really just enhance the livability of our region. We have wonderful artists that we see in our 3 counties, if it's pottery or watercoloring or sculptures or the written word or live music or performances, whatever that may be. We are here as that umbrella organization to help fund that as well as bring awareness and advocate for their services.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah. Okay, Paula, so you guys applied for this grant.
That is correct.
Okay, you got a 2.9, you need a 3.0.
That is correct.
Okay, and the grant was for 49,500.
That is correct.
Okay, you're asking Chautauqua County for 11,500. Where's the other 38,000 coming from to make up for the grant you didn't get?
So I chose the number of 11,500 because that is what I am currently receiving from Cattaraugus County. Cattaraugus County does fund us and has been funding us through their own budget processes for about the last 15 years. I picked the 11.5 because that is what they are currently funding us at for 2023.
Cattaraugus County.
That is correct.
Okay,
And then
What about Allegheny County?
I was just going to say,
Okay.
yesterday I went to a similar meeting in Allegheny County and I requested the same amount. That does not take care of the 49.5.
No.
We are working through our own budget process to trim where we can when it comes to either payroll or services. And then we're also looking for additional funding through private foundations as well as grant opportunities.
Okay. Cattaraugus and Allegheny haven't approved anything yet? You've just talked to them?
Cattaraugus County has been funding us, and that money has already been given to us. They have funded us for years.
Okay.
Allegheny, I went yesterday and met with their Ways and Means Committee, and it did pass committee to go to resolution to their full meeting next week.
Okay. But even if you get this 11.5 from the three counties, that's 34,500.
That is
You
correct.
still have to make up 15,000?
That is correct.
Or you're going to make cuts, I guess,
That
to
is
your
correct.
program?
Yes. So we've
Okay.
reduced payroll. I would like not to reduce services anymore. We've, kind of tried to, as everyone has been doing, increasing some areas of revenue with trimming back our expenses, as everyone is looking for a balanced budget regardless of your
Sure.
organization. So it's not going to take us to the full amount, but it will get us closer. And then we're looking for private funding through foundations as well as grant opportunities.
Good enough. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Would someone be willing to make a motion to adjust the whereas clause, changing the occupancy tax reserve account from 417,144 to 733,854?
I'll make that moment.
In a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Any other comments, questions on the amended version? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
5 minutes.
Let's see. We have two others.
Oh.
In both of those, let's see.
Is that under other? Yeah.
Yes. So we can take let's take a 10-minute break, and when we come back, we'll continue on with our agenda. We have some discussion and a couple late resolutions. Thank you.
Sounds good. Moving right along.
They've got the Tri-County Arts Group. They've got a building. Yep, I'm sorry. Yeah.
We'll reconvene the meeting. We'll continue down our agenda. Next on the agenda is item number 23 is discussion. It's update on investment portfolio.
Kidding.
Right there. I don't mind if you do those, but you have resolutions.
I do have a few. I know you've been patiently waiting, so it's up to you.
Oh, you can go ahead with the resolution.
Okay.
It shouldn't take too long for these other resolutions.
Let's jump down to our other section, and we'll look at the. We have 3 late resolutions that have been put in front of us today. No particular order, or I guess the first one is titled "Establishing a County Salary Commission."
Good morning. Patrick Slagle, County Attorney. It's not afternoon yet, so that's always a good thing, right?
Yes. Not yet.
So before you is a resolution to establish a county salary commission. This came up in front of admin services this week. There was discussion, there's a discussion item about establishing this commission. It's been well over 10 years, I believe, since this commission has been formed and reviewed the salary of elected officials. And we're looking at the legislators, county executive, the sheriff, and the county clerk would be subject to this review. And what this is, it's right in the charter. It establishes a bipartisan committee of 7 individuals to do a study to review the salaries of the elected officials and determine whether or not there should be any adjustment. And again, it's been, I think, well over 10 years. I can't remember the last, I wasn't here that time, but it's been quite a while. So what this does is it would establish that commission, and then at a later time, the legislators would have the opportunity to appoint 7 individuals to serve on that commission and to conduct that study.
Sounds good. I've been a proponent of this just to have the committee formed because, as the last 10 years has gone by, we've and even in the real recent future, given a lot of the salary ranges a good significant bump. I don't have the exact figure in front of me, but I know like the undersheriff probably has more means of making more than the elected sheriff. So I think it's important that we at least have this commission formed and looked at. So,
and that's a concern, and I think it's come up and why. And the HR director is the individual that came in and spoke at admin services. And I know in conversation I had with her is that could happen when you don't constantly look at salaries of elected officials as other salaries increase. You might have some inconsistencies there in terms of paying positions. And so again, this just establishes that at a later point as individuals step forward. I'm sure we'll come to you with a new resolution to appoint individuals to this board, as this commission.
Comments, questions?
Yeah, Patrick, I think during the last 10 years, we have raised the sheriff's salary and I think maybe the county clerk salary, but I think that was just through a resolution. I don't think that came to us through a commission, but I'm not positive.
One way that I believe it happened is also every 10 years, there's a charter and administrative code commission that gets established to review that.
Okay.
So I believe it was
it came through them
2014. So I think the raises came through the charter. The charter was revised to put forth a COLA for some elected officials. And so 10 years brings us to 2024. So by next year, there'll be another resolution coming forward to establish a commission to review the charter. But, I think the Salary Review Commission, that's the purpose of the charter is to do that.
And this is different from the charter review.
Correct. I guess you can have inconsistencies between the 2 different commissions. The salary, says one thing, but the charter commission wants to do different things. You may have that, but this is, again, right through.
No, it's a good idea to have that.
Any other questions, comments? So the thought is to approve this commission. And then throughout the next little bit here is to actually fill the positions. And then we will need to have another another resolution that is putting names on these positions, correct?
And speaking of Chairman Chagnon, I think you made a wonderful idea that let's create the commission, and I think that'll pique a lot of interest of individuals who may want to approach and say they'd be willing to serve on this voluntary commission.
Thank you. That's the answer I was trying to get out of you. So any other questions, comments? All those in favor of the proposed resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And we'll handle your next one if you want, which is the one you just gave me, correct? So
Correct.
Title is authorized lease agreement with Warwick Plaza LLC for Chautauqua County Department of Mental Hygiene Mobile Crisis Team office space.
So I appreciate you taking this kind of in the last minute. I was in touch with Mental Hygiene about this resolution. They're looking to lease space at Warwick Plaza. I believe it's right across from Tanglewood Manor out in Lakewood. Essentially, the mobile crisis team doesn't have a home spot. They kind of bounce between offices, across the county, whether it be Mayville or Dunkirk or Jamestown. And it's inconvenient for them because obviously as space flexes, they kind of get pushed and are told, go to a different office. We need this space today. So this opportunity came across to lease this place. This will give them a central location where they can go. It's a team, I believe, of 8 individuals that serve on this mobile crisis team. It's a good location, to be able to serve the county. So hoping to be able to enter into this lease. This resolution authorizes the county executive to, execute and negotiate the lease pursuant to the terms as you see on the resolution.
Do you know any budget figures? So do we have this anticipated in the budget? And what are the, do we have it anticipated?
Unfortunately, I don't have those answers for you today. But Kitty.
It does in the third, whereas it mentions it. The expenses associated with this lease are already in the
And with these
2023
figures,
budget.
or must be is within the adopted budget, the figures that we anticipate or guessed about. Right?
Yeah. This was something that they were looking to do for this mobile crisis team. Again, as they've kind of juggled through different locations that mental hygiene has.
And where was Warwick Plaza again, Patrick?
It's right across from Tanglewood Plaza.
Tanglewood Manor.
I'm sorry, Tanglewood Manor. That's correct.
Okay. Now I know where you're at. Okay.
Any other questions, comments? I'm okay with accepting late resolutions to a point because it's good to get something moving. I'm sure that the mental hygiene is going to will be happy to get this space as early as they can. They've been planning on it and they need it. So instead of postponing it for another month, just so it can go through human services as well. I think it's important that we were able to bring it forward today so that we can get it moving. And this just is a little too late of meeting the formal deadline but I don't want to slow it down any. If anyone has any other questions in any other committees, that please hope that they will reach out to those that they need to. Any other questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
In our final proposed resolution today is confirmation of amendments to the water purchase supply agreement between the city of Dunkirk and the county of Chautauqua and its North Chautauqua County Water District, 183904 and 153901. Anyone here to speak to that today?
Mr. Chairman, I believe a member of your committee serves on the North County Water District. So perhaps Legislator Nebel could speak to this resolution.
I don't have that front of me, Dan.
I guess
just
that's
see.
enough.
What's that?
I said, I guess that's enough.
Well, Pierre, this is the first I'm seeing this here, but I mean, they're asking for a rate increase. I'm sure it's been discussed and it's probably needed.
This was discussed at Public Facilities, I believe. And Kathy Tampio spoke on behalf of the Water District on this. They have traditionally used a very complicated formula for determining what the water rates are. And there's been a lot of discussion about that formula, a re-look at that formula, and they would like to consider between the city of Dunkirk and the Water District, they'd like to consider how that formula could be modified, improved. But in the interim, what they're suggesting is that for the year of 2023, they suspend that method and just raise the existing rate by 3 cents, which amounts to a very small percentage of increase of the water rate. So the North Chautauqua County Water District Board was very much in favor of this approach to come to an amicable solution for 2023 as they work to adjust, revise, modify the determination of how the rate should be determined. And at this point, no one knows if the rates in the future would be going up or down. But they feel that it needs to be seriously reevaluated because this mechanism that's in place has been in place since the district was formed, which is 10 years now.
About.
Yep.
Yeah, Pierre, it doesn't say here, but it says a 3 cent increase over the 2022 water rate.
Yes.
Rate. The 22 rate was 381, as I recall, and this would be 384. But the rate before the 322 was 357. So that from the 21 to 22 was quite an increase.
Yes.
But the 22 to 23 was not. It was only 3 cents. You're right. The whole calculation process has to be looked at and examined.
Yep. So this just establishes a 1% effectively increase from the 22 rate to the 23 rate, and gives us a time to reevaluate, reassess, and determine how we go forward from there.
Yeah.
Is there any talk about reworking that formula?
Oh, yes.
That's the promise. They're gonna rework that formula and
Well, collectively, the district and the city need to look at that. The formula was established by a professor at Fredonia State University, and it's a very complicated formula. So,
And that was years ago.
yes.
David. So in the meantime, the city came up with just a 3 cent, okay, like roughly a 1% increase for next year. So, I mean, that was talked about, that was agreed to by the water district. And that seemed very fair to us. Going forward, there'll have to be more negotiations between the city and the water district concerning the rate.
Yep.
Well, thank you for that very informational session on the fly.
Thank Pierre.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now that does bring us to our last item on the agenda today, and that is our discussion on the investment portfolio.
Oh, another eye test.
Yes, those are done.
Hello, Kitty Crow, Director of Finance. Okay, so I put together a few, well, I brought a few things. They were already put together, but so the first page here is, this is one of the pages in the investment report that is sent out to, it comes in as a communication, but what this shows is just the kind of a cumulative monthly report. I did include, because this year was so unusual, I always include the prior 2 years, but at the top, I have the total, ending balances for years 2013 through 2019, just for comparative purposes. So we haven't had such a bad negative year since 2013. But this year, and this is the full portfolio, so this isn't just the capital reserve or anything like that. So we did, on paper, our ending loss is, $5,071,000. But, what I want to emphasize is that is just the market value of our total portfolio. So we do receive, in the next page I'll go through with you, we actually do receive interest payments, every month. We are earning on our investments, and the market, but we have to record the current value of the holdings if we were to sell them off today. If we were to sell them off today, we would see a $5 million loss. But that's not what we do with our portfolio. We are holding to maturity, so we will always get, the yield that is, what the yield that was with that bond at the time we purchased it. So, or purchased that investment. So in the meantime, and so what we, as you may recall, what we decided to do, because obviously this was a very unusual year. There's ups and downs every year. So we had agreed that in the, to change what would go to the capital reserve to be based on what the actual cash interest payments received in the prior year are. So that's where we'll get to the next page. So any questions on this so far? Pierre?
Kitty, that was a good explanation of, book to market. I would just add to that the state requires us to book to the market value of our investments for the simple purpose that if we had a calamity and we had to liquidate our entire investment portfolio of $54 million.
Correct.
This is what the result would be. We'd wind up losing $5 million.
Yes.
But so it's the worst case possible scenario that they're requiring us to reflect in our balance statement.
Yes, that's true. Just another side note, I am on 2 other boards. So one, I won't name them, but one has a portfolio not quite as large as ours, but a sizable, and so I do see what their earnings are, and we are not out of the ballpark. We're not out of, in comparative purposes, where most everyone else is, and in some cases a little bit better.
And Kitty, I'd also add that under your guidance for the last several years, understanding that the day was coming when interest rates were going to rise and we would see this effect that we saw in 2022, you've been shortening the duration of our investments. So we're having shorter term bonds than what we normally would have in a rising market. So the negative effect has been mitigated to a substantial degree by the efforts that you and your investment advisors have taken over the last several years.
Yeah. I do feel fortunate to have some good partners in terms of managing our portfolio. We primarily work with 2 brokers. There's a third one that I might purchase something from occasionally, but right now primarily Cruz and Associates and the Baker Group are the primary brokers that I work with. They on a quarterly basis go through a full analysis, our position, how we're structured, our cash flow. And then along with that comes the help that we get from 3+1 in managing our liquidity. So what that means is, and that'll be the last page, of all of the funds we're holding, are we appropriately investing them to make good use of those dollars while we're holding them, and making sure we know how much liquid cash we need to have to cover our monthly expenses. But so we've done pretty good at that with the help of those partners. So, our strategy around investing, yes, every month, generally speaking, the holdings are, kind of maturing on a regular basis. So every month we probably have a $1/2 to $750,000 that pays down that we reinvest. So, we've really been focused on this, Todd and I, over the last year to make and we've taken some strategies, in this market to protect ourselves, because now, rates are rising, and also protect ourselves, but also now take advantage of rising rates. So we have shortened up the duration, and we've done a lot with short-term earnings when the long-term rates were low, which you'll see on the next page. So, we are constantly, just talking with our partners to try and make sure we're making the best investments.
Do you feel we have enough variety?
Yeah. So they always look at this with us too, in terms of the different types of investments that we're allowed to hold. Yeah.
And I obviously sparked question with the recent happenings of the California bank.
Yeah.
But, and that's every institution has its own risks, okay, associated with that. And that one had some of those risks in it, unfortunately came to fruition.
Yeah.
And, I know that our institutions that we are associated with are solid. But,
yeah. So the banks that we use for like our accounts, like our payroll and paying our vendors. So those accounts, generally we keep only in those accounts what we need to, on a recurring basis, pay them. Everything else we try to either keep in a money market, because we know we don't need it till next month. We're not going to lock it up in a 3-year bond. So with 3+1 really helping us to know what is the minimum amount we need to keep in the bank to cover our monthly costs. So the rest of the portfolio is in, insured investments, either CDs, treasuries, or any of the other types of bonds that we're allowed to purchase for our longer term portfolio. Right now, as we're bringing in, tax receipts, our balances are usually, going up, that we bring all the money in the beginning of the year, but we spend it down by the end of the year in terms of what we need to cover our expenses during the year. And so right now, as those tax receipts come in, we'll put them in maybe a 3-month CD or a money market, and they're held there until Todd spaces it out based on knowing when we need to spend down those dollars during the year. Key Bank is our primary bank for our payables. We have like our credit card purchasing accounts with M&T Bank. And we have a couple of banks that we do some other smaller transactions. We don't keep on deposit so much, so those are kind of swept daily. But the primary bank that we use for our day-to-day cash management is Key Bank.
And in the news you hear of businesses or organizations that lost. I don't know if I've noticed them mentioning anything about a municipality, but I'm sure that maybe a municipality had them as their banking agency, and that would be a bad position to be in all of a sudden if you were a municipality.
Yeah.
So, Terry?
Okay.
Yeah, Kitty, before we leave this first sheet, so for 2022, our book to market value, they overall not good, but it looks like the last couple of months we did do better.
Yeah.
November and December, was especially November,
Yeah.
correct?
We had one good month.
One good month.
Yeah, it's like I cringe every time I had to do the report this month, this year, or this past year, because, but
But the last couple of months of 22, better.
yes, but I do think, during this next year, we're going to see, more positive, just because, as we've been reinvesting things that paid down in 2022 into, investments that have higher yields, we'll see a different picture in 2023.
Okay, thanks.
But you can see every year there are some months that there's a recorded loss, so it does fluctuate. Even in 2020, when we booked $2.1 million, there were still 3 months in that year that we booked a negative earnings.
Right. Thanks.
So the second page I handed out shows the actual interest income, like the actual cash interest payment that we received. I broke it down. So the M&T statement, that is from our Wilmington Trust. So that's primarily our long-term portfolio. So, the longer-term bonds that we purchase, the investment income, I recorded that monthly. Where we've really made a dramatic difference to offset those negative earnings, and also just based on new strategies that we've put in place, you can see that compared to 2021, where we had 66,000 in short-term earnings, we've boosted that to 523,000, and that's really due to a lot of work Todd does, and more of the short-term, understanding what our short-term cash needs are, and through advice of our brokers, helping us to know like how much we need to have on hand and what opportunities are out there for us to, we have a 3, 6, and a 9-month CDs that are laddered out, but we're earning more on those, putting them into CDs that are short term for during the year than just in the money markets. The money market accounts have had really low rates if close to zero. Kudos to Todd to, staying on, because it takes time. It's not that this can't be done, but you have to stay on top of it, and you can't just, I'll do that next week. You really have to take advantage of things as they come up. So,
that's significant.
Yeah.
A huge increase.
When just even looking at the interest on the ARPA funds, is that's paid for a project.
Yeah. So getting to that, so that's kind of exciting. So what we've done with the ARPA funds, because and they are set separate because we keep track of our ARPA funds separately as we need to. As you know, we don't normally get an upfront payment from the government, but we wanted to make sure that we invested them and earned as much interest as we can on them until we need them. So when we for that maybe first 12 months, the rates, there wasn't a lot of opportunity then, but then what happened in July and then in September this year, we recognized, I had all the departments that had ARPA projects, send me the kind of a cash flow when they expect to have to spend money on that project, so we could see how far out we could invest some of the ARPA money until we need it. Because some of the projects they're going to, if it's a construction work. It's going to take longer. Some of them we've already spent the money down. So we've kept some of the ARPA funds that we know we're going to need in the next 12 months in a money market type of account. The rest, we have the majority of the rest of it invested in, it's a new New York municipal trust that was formed last year. And just as a side note, I was asked to be part of the that board as one of the founding members of that new trust that was rolled out as an investment opportunity. It's an investment pool that all levels of municipal government can participate in. So we've seen really their rates there have been, since its launch in September. They're up, I think their rate now is up to about 4.7 and should be a little higher as they start to invest and focus on some of the newer investment opportunities that the change in the state law last year allows us to be in. So it's an exciting, new trust. They've had a lot of other counties and, fire districts, school districts, towns and villages are able to participate in this fund. So that's, our to date, we have $240,000 of interest income, of which interest income on the ARPA funds is not restricted for any particular purpose. So we can use it for whatever we decide in the future. So we'll have additional earnings this year. I can't remember what percentage of the total funds we received we've spent down already, but
It's an ironic number. That'll cover our overages or our administrative costs on our 3% fund. Right? Do it there. That's what it was.
But
Maybe.
that's just a one-time.
Well, keep up with the work on the investments.
So based on our change in the I think it's in the financial management policy to adjust the capital reserve at year end based on what our actual interest income has been versus just the market value. So Todd's booked that adjustment and for the capital reserve, because the full amount of interest earnings don't go to the just the capital reserve. They're allocated across all county funds. So, the D fund, the, M funds, all of the different sewer district funds, they all get a proration of because we pool our cash. And so all of the funds based on their month ending cash balances, we allocate interest earnings. So the portion that is going to the capital reserve, I think was about, the year-end adjustment was about 676,000, or is it? No, that's the net balance at the end of 2022. But because we had already had a negative, I think 212,000.
So it's still in the negative. It's negative 676,000.
Negative.
I think the negative
sorry.
in that account is really a positive in our.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
terms.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is now It is now a positive balance of 676.
Yeah. So, still not, as we go forward, because there was already a $200,000, loss in that reserve. So this year's earnings made up that loss, and then we ended with 676. We did use 330,000 of reserve for capital in the 2023 budget. So, it's to the good right now, 360 or 70. I know she's looking at it, but
What?
Or we have a positive balance now, even after what we've used of the reserve for capital in the 2023 budget of about 300,000+. So that's all good news.
Dan, just a quick question.
Uh-huh.
Kitty, as far as the ARPA funds, are there any restrictions as to how those can be invested?
Not the interest income.
Not the interest income.
Yeah, so
Well,
the guy,
okay.
yeah,
But as far as the actual funds, you can invest those in money markets
yeah,
or,
we can invest them the same way and we invest any of our cash.
okay.
We just didn't we invested it in a way that we'll have it when we need it.
I was just wondering, it's federal money, so I was just wondering if there was any restrictions as to
They
how they
didn't put
can.
it, I mean, so they put a lot of guidance in there, but
Okay.
there was no guidance or restriction put on how we would use interest income on those funds.
Okay, so we invest it, we get the interest income, we can spend the interest income however we want.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And the last page is, for your information, 3+1, who is our partners, helping us, manage our liquidity, making sure we have everything we can invested in making, earning interest on all of the tax dollars that we can. So we're not leaving anything on the table. You may recall they did give us an award for having a perfect score for, 4 quarters in a row, actually 5 in total. We did have a little drop down in early 2022, but we've recovered to our most latest score of 99. They do rank us in 5 categories. The only category we are down a little bit is in our earnings credit ratio. And what that is, with KeyBank, we keep a minimum balance, and what that earning credit ratio is relates to is that the bank wants you to keep a minimum amount of money in the bank, and then they don't charge you fees. And then any amount above that you can earn some interest on, but it's usually not as much as if you had it in another type of an investment. So, we had more in there than maybe, in their ranking scale that we needed to have. So, but that doesn't mean it's still covering our fees. They are looking at other options for us if it would be better. Can KeyBank lower that minimum balance that we need to keep in there? So it's not as significant. I'm not worried about the -1 there in that category.
I think it's an avenue to look, and I think it's an avenue to ask. So sometimes, banks have those things in there, but it doesn't mean that it's locked in stone. You just call and say, look, we don't like this, or we're going to shop it around. And you say, and sometimes that banker is going to say, well, I can make that change.
So one of the benefits of working with 3+1 too is because they work with a lot of other counties. And they see what rates other counties are getting with different banks. And so they can help us to stay competitive. If they see that, the bank fees or the rate that we're getting, even on a money market or a CD is where we have our money, they will point out other, like it might have been over a year ago now, we made some investments with TD Bank that they had brought to our attention, and we've really done well on some short-term earnings through the investments we made with TD Bank. But without having them, that knowledge that they bring to us, we can't. I'm not a banker, so I'm not don't have the capacity or the resources in my team to be shopping around all the time, but they kind of have that visibility that we definitely have, made some changes based on them, or they'll even call our bank representatives to say, can you do a little better on this rate, or, even on our money market. So that's been a big help.
They have the expertise.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So then as far as the reports for this year, as you know, Todd's going to be out a couple of months after this week for medical leave, and it's unlikely I'll be able to provide the full report that I normally send because of some journal entries and transactions that he usually processes at the end of each month. But what I will do is provide probably something more like our actual, like the page 2 I gave you. I'll provide a kind of a modified report until we're caught up when Todd comes back to have the full regular report for you. But I just wanted to let you know that now. And then I also just wanted to, on 2 other side topics, the audit, the 2022 audit is started. You know, we did meet with our auditors. Drescher and Malecki is back on board this year, and they're aware that Todd will be out, you know, over the next 2 months, and they're very reassuring that, you know, we'll still be able to complete our audit and what, you know, before the drop dead deadline that of the federal government, which is September 30th. So we would not want to go past that date, because then that would, you know, we'd get more than a, you know, hand slap. So, but they reassured us that, you know, there's other audits they've started, you know, later than June and still been able to turn it around. So I was glad to hear that. So there are some things though that Todd has gotten them already, so they can do some work, you know, while he's out. And I'd expect we should be able to, you know, normally we report in July, but as of right now, I don't think we would come any later than August. We might even possibly still be able to make July meeting, but I'll keep you posted on that. I know last month Kathleen reviewed our year-end results with you. There's no significant changes since then, but just some of the entries that we talked about haven't been posted yet, and I had hoped to have a resolution making those fund adjustments and the amendments to the capital project by this month, but I've had some other priorities that so I wasn't able to get those resolutions in for this month, but they will definitely be in for next month. So by that time we'll have a more solid, you know, number, but I don't it's not anticipated to change materially from what Kathleen has already provided you. It's just a matter of getting those entries made. Any other questions while I'm here for me?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make an observation that I remember well when we appointed Kitty Crow as our finance director. And at the time, she was very frank and honest with us in telling us that she had very limited knowledge and experience with the county's investment policies and procedures, and she had a lot to learn. And now that brings us to today, when the investment results of Chautauqua County are the envy of many counties across the state, and Kitty is recognized as a knowledgeable and experienced resource for many of the other counties across New York State. So
she's grown.
absolutely. And we should be very proud and very thankful of her development in this area. Thank you, Kitty.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. I appreciate it. It was an area of, you know, I was, it's a big responsibility, and I really have tried to focus on staying on top of all of that. So
Nice job.
thank you.
No, and I echo that. It's a very good job, and it's some real potential for the county to just. It's our responsibility to make as much as we can with what we have and keep what we have. So just a simple, quick example of that is the ARPA funds. Sitting on those funds, we've been able to accumulate that much in a couple of years. It's really great. And then you multiply that out into the rest of the county assets. It's really something that isn't seen as a, you know, if we are very prudent in how we do this, it does help us keep our taxes at a lower rate also. You know, if we weren't investing wisely and being able to gain some extra revenues in other areas, and then we would have to raise it in other areas, and that's taxes or fees or something, you know. So,
and then this cash vest score, I know I know we had 100 for 4 quarters. We're down to 99, but that's not bad. so congratulations.
thank you. Any other discussion or anything else anyone else wants to discuss before we close?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I just want to let you know that I am not able to attend the meeting next month, and that's when I would normally give you the quarterly update on the ARPA program. So I will send out information in advance of the meeting.
Good, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
In a second? Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.
To let you know that they weren't coming. I mean, I'm here, but
Bob did, yes.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Tom, no, but Tom's on the town, right?
I don't know. I usually, when I'm not here, I call Pierre. I thought that's
Oh,
what,
do you?
that's what I do.
I usually call the chairman. I was